The man in front of me was fired by Company A because of his age. The female CEO, worth billions, not only didn't look down on him, but was willing to offer him a $10 million annual salary to hire him. This was because the man was one of the world's top hackers. He could casually type a few keys and bring the entire city's network to a standstill. He even developed the X system while working at Company A. This turned Company A from a small business into a publicly listed company. However, the boss of Company A lacked vision. He believed that once the man turned 35, he was no longer useful. On the very day the company went public, he fired the man. At that moment, the boss didn't know that his malicious actions today would lead to the eventual downfall of his company in the future. The man returned home feeling defeated. When he saw his kind wife and cute daughter, he couldn't help but feel guilty. The next day, he started going to interviews at other companies. Little did he know that the boss of Company A had already connived with interviewers at other companies. The interviewer didn't even look at his resume and threw it straight into the trash. Helpless, the man started delivering food. One day, while delivering food, the man passed by Company A. By chance, he ran into the boss of Company A. The boss had just fired another group of old employees. The man couldn't stand the boss's behavior. He didn't want to reveal that he was now just a food delivery worker, so he immediately put on a mask. Then, he rushed forward and started arguing with the boss. But at that moment, there was an assistant next to the boss. The assistant thought the man looked very familiar. He suddenly pulled off the man's mask. Under the mask was a panicked look on the man's face. The boss and his assistant immediately burst out laughing. They mocked him without hesitation, calling him a failure. He could only deliver food after leaving the company. The man was furious. He accused the boss of being a greedy jerk. The company clearly grew successfully because of him. He was the one who created the X system. What right did the boss have to look down on him? But the boss was arrogant. He thought the company's success was entirely because of his leadership. It had nothing to do with the man, this ordinary programmer. At that moment, a phone call interrupted the argument. But before the man could answer, the assistant grabbed the phone from him. The assistant casually scrolled through the man's phone. He found that the man still had the company's client group saved. The boss wasn't happy when he heard this. He had already fired the man. What was the man doing keeping the client group? Was he planning a conspiracy to sabotage the company? Once again, the man was shocked by the boss's stupidity. It turned out that most of the company's big clients came to work with Company A because of the man. He kept the client group out of a sense of responsibility for his previous work. If he left the group, those collaborations would fall apart too. But the boss was very dismissive. He believed he was the true soul of the company. The man had such thick skin. He was going to prove today that the company could function without the man, that the collaborations with other companies would continue smoothly. So, the boss immediately ordered his assistant to remove all of the man's client groups. The man hurriedly tried to stop him and warned them that they would regret it in the future, but the assistant ignored his warnings completely. He smugly removed all of the man's client groups. The man grabbed his phone back. Since the boss wanted the company to go bankrupt himself, there was nothing he could do to stop it. Let the boss and the assistant wait for divine punishment. Unexpectedly, the assistant wasn't angry at all after hearing the man's curse. The man was just an ordinary delivery worker now. Teaching him a lesson was incredibly easy. He threatened the man to kneel and apologize immediately. Otherwise, he would call the delivery platform to report him and have him fired on the spot. But the man didn't submit. He firmly refused to kneel to evil people. But the assistant suddenly mentioned his wife and daughter. At that moment, the man hesitated. He could live freely without a job, but his wife and daughter needed a better life. He couldn't afford to lose this delivery job. So, he gritted his teeth. And finally, reluctantly, he knelt down. But unexpectedly, the assistant was just playing with him. He arrogantly recorded a video of the man being humiliated and then filed a complaint with the delivery platform. The man was furious. He immediately rushed forward to beat up the assistant and the boss. The boss screamed in pain. He called for security to deal with the man. He wanted them to teach the man a harsh lesson. But at that moment, a woman suddenly appeared. She immediately drew everyone's attention. It turned out that the woman was the billionaire CEO. She had long admired the man's talents. But unfortunately, the man had always worked at Company A. Now, after hearing the news of the man's resignation, she immediately came to Company A. She never expected to see such a scene. However, the boss didn't know the real reason the female CEO CEO had come. He thought she was there to increase investment in Company A. He immediately rushed to flatter and greet her, but to his surprise, the female CEO ignored him completely. She walked straight towards the man. She formally invited the man to work for her and announced that she would never work with Company A again. The boss was suddenly flustered. The man was just an older programmer. Was she really going to reject collaboration just for him? The female CEO seemed to see a fool with low intelligence. She mocked the boss for lacking vision and told him to get medical treatment and not delay his condition. At this moment, the boss still didn't know that the CEOs of other companies would also be pulling out of the collaborations. When they saw the news of the man removing the client groups, Company A's end was near.